Let's dive into this. I'm with my boy Chris from Kane's Legacy. Make sure you check out Kane's Legacy on Twitter and Kane's Insight. But we're here after the Miami Clemson game. Clemson a lot, Miami a little. Uh, what are you most disappointed in, Chris?
Well, I think from the top it was the offense just not seeming to have any sort of plan or counter punch to whatever they threw at us. I think, I was really expecting them to have something new, something fresh, like they had been holding off on until we got to this week, but it really looked like they didn't have any answers once they got punched in the mouth a few times, and that was very disappointing considering what we had seen previous in the year.
I mean, I think it's pretty simple how to stop our offense. We're going to play man up on the receivers. They're going to press our receivers, or maybe not even press, but they're just going to go man across the board, and they're going to dare you to beat them deep. And then they're going to put everybody else in the box. And basically, if De'Aaron King can't connect with the wide receivers deep, if the wide receivers can't fight and make a play, and if all we're going to give up is 5-yard slants, then we're going to lose games. Now, when you're playing a team that's not as good as Clemson, because Clemson is the number one team in the nation, even though I doubted them, they're the number one team in the nation, then maybe a De'Aaron King can scramble for a touchdown, or Cameron Harris can scramble, or Brevin Jordan can get behind them. But the elite teams are going to press us and say, can you beat us? And if you can't, they're going to beat us down. I thought that was the key to the game was if you can't go vertical, then you don't the box just gets smaller and smaller. That's why we couldn't run the ball. You agree or disagree?
Agreed, 100%. And I think we've had a lot of people who have had questions about our wide receiving core, and we say when we get and we talk every week, maybe now you get the young guys in, maybe get the young guys in, just to see what they have, see if there can be something different. Maybe they bring some more explosiveness or physicality to the table and see what they can do. And I think after a game like this, where you look at it and you look at your starting wide receivers and you say, yeah, they're upperclassmen, but we don't have a guy there that can open it up. Like their corners, they're like these, highly recruited 5-star guys that are going to be high picks and all that, but we didn't even really challenge them. And even on plays where we, completed it down the field or somewhat down the field, it was because our guy just happened to be in the exact perfect position. It's not like he beat anybody to the ball. So their corners beat us up every single play throughout the course of this game. And there's no way to win a football game when that's happening. Because like you said, it goes into all the other facets of the offense. And without any kind of spacing, which is one of the 10 poles of this style of offense that Lashley runs, without spacing, then you might as well forget it. And that's where you hope to think that there's a counter punch in there. If this doesn't work, maybe we could go to, or maybe we could try to pull, maybe we could. But with the way the offensive line was, struggling to handle the physicality of the Clemson defensive line, there was just nothing. There's no answers at all.
So are we ready to try? I want you to let me know if I'm right or if I'm wrong. I think it's time to start all new wide receivers. And this is why I'll say that, because I know a lot of people will say I'm overreacted to one game, but realistically, and we've had this conversation plenty of times, our wide receivers aren't creating separation, which means we can't get the vertical game going. We can't get the outside game going. So I personally think I would like to see 3 new wide receivers. Will it work? Will they do any better? I don't know. But all I know is the last 3 games, we haven't been able to throw the ball vertically to our wide receivers. I can think of the D. Wiggins long pass as a vertical play. Everything else, anything long, has been to Brevin Jordan. Do you think I'm overreacting? I think we need 3. We need to try 3 new wide receivers.
I think we need to try it for sure. And King also, King wasn't great throwing the deep ball.
I agree.
Which adds on to it. There was a couple of times, there was one of them that, as the ball went up in the air, I was like, that's just a duck. Like that's not weather, that's not this, that's just like putting the ball up in the air, hoping someone can go get it, but it was like towards the middle of the field, and I think it was the one that he actually got the PI call on. But it was like that was never going to be completed. That was man, I hope that they interfere with my guy kind of throw, which, maybe that was in his head too, knowing that if you put it outside, the better spot for the receiver, he just can't beat the guy. So put it inside, so try to get contact and see what happens. But I would definitely let the young guys out there just to see what you have, because at this point you have to like really try to decide what you are, and are we okay with being like a middle of the road team? Because if we're okay with being a middle of the road team, then by all means just let these older receivers stay out there, because that's what they are. They're receivers that would start on an average team that's like it's in the top 25 but isn't going to beat anybody with their receiver play. Put the young guys in, maybe a year from now, that like with that ability to get on the field as early on in their career, maybe they could be those guys that help you take the next step. So I would rather see them out there to see what they can do. I don't think it could be worse, because I think that they can catch the ball, and like even Keyshawn Smith was the only one to catch a deep ball really. So I don't think it could be any worse.
So you brought something up that was very important. I think maybe it's time for Miami Hurricanes fans to open their eyes. Again, I am not overreacted to one game. Matter of fact, I don't want a lot of people to overreact to this game, but this is our fourth game, and the Eric Kings having trouble throwing the deep ball. Even on the deep pass, that the double reverse, or the play where we threw it, the trick play where we threw it to him and he threw it deep, even that pass was underthrown. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're right, 100%. 100%. It's it's De'Aaron wasn't. It's a key staple of last year's offense to make sure he goes down the field, because the more you're able to go down the field, the more space in the middle, the more opportunities for the run game. The linebackers take a couple extra steps back, which means your linemen can double off in their initial block and get better positioning on the linebackers, and it all goes from there, right? And if you're unable to do it, then you're in trouble. I do think he's having some trouble, and a big part of that is, like we talk about D. Wiggins, like he's our best deep threat, but he's not because he's a great deep threat. It just so happens to be the best of the guys that we have, because Harley really isn't a good deep receiver. We saw in the first couple of weeks where he really made some bad plays when he was out there, plays that he should have made, a veteran receiver should have made. He's just not used to catching the ball at that level of the defense. And then Pope, he's just hasn't done anything yet. So we can't really trust him out there. So Wiggins is kind of like by default. He's made a couple plays, but you get the young guys out there. You get Redding out there, who seems like he's more physically ready to, go out there and contest the catch. I mean, and just too, you have guys like just body type. Like body type, what do you really expect Wiggins to be able to do? Like he's 6'3" or so, but he's 185. Those Clemson DBs were like they were 6'1", and they were solid. Like there was that one play in the interception in the corner of the end zone where King put it up. It, again, wasn't a great throw, but Wiggins got pushed down with one hand, and he's out looking for a flag. I'm like, no, you guys are competing down the field. Like you got to make that play. Ladson and Blades on the other side had the same kind of hand fighting. Ladson went out there and made a play. And then Wiggins, a little bit of hand fighting, he gets knocked to the ground. If you have guys like that who can't go out there and compete with DBs to get a ball, like that's, potentially going to bring you down to, I think it would have been 4 at that point, then what are you really asking them for? So you got to find other guys that can go do that.
That's facts. And I want people, I want to keep reiterating this. Some of the things that I'm saying, there are a reaction to this game, but I'm bringing the first 4 games into one. So after the first 4 games, when I look at this offense, I see that we can't throw the ball vertically, and I believe that's wide receivers, and I believe that's the quarterback. And I love De'Aaron King, and I'm happy with there's no quarterback competition here. De'Aaron King's our guy. I loved how he fought to the end. But we're looking at, like you said, do we want to be a middle of the road pack team, or do we want to win the ACC? And I think the way we get to beat the teams like Clemson, like Notre Dame, like those type of teams is we're going to have to be able to air the ball out every time. We don't have to do it like an air raid system, but we at least have to have that threat. That way people can't stack the box against us. So, which brings me to my next question. Did you have a problem with Lashley's offense? Some people said it was vanilla. Some people said it was this, but I just thought he was handicapped because if you can't throw the ball vertically, then our strength is running the ball. And, I mean, what are you going to do? So what did you think about the play calling?
Well, I think Clemson was keying on that, like all the read option plays, like any type of read we ran, like they were just too fast, too big, too strong on the defensive line to do anything with it. And, we kept trying to go back to it because that's so important in the offense and it really wasn't working. I would have liked to have seen them try to do something where they use that read look to go in to open up the pass in the middle of the field to try to, get Jordan more involved and get Mallory involved at all, even just a little bit, just to use his size on the interior. Because their linebackers were moving up. Like as soon as this ball was snapped, their linebackers were coming forward. They were focused on stopping King and stopping Harris and stopping the run game. And we never really tried to attack the middle of the field, like that intermediate spot. If anything, we were throwing it way downfield where their corners were just too much an overmatch for our receivers. But that's like, again, there's so much that is controlled by your ability just to run the ball a little bit. And I think the offensive line had a bad game. I don't think that any one of the guys on our offensive line today could look back and say, like, this is a game that's going to help me make it to the next level. I think on the outside, Campbell really saw what it was like to go up against top tier speed rushers, and he just got beat like a drum a couple plays. And then in the interior, they just weren't strong enough. Those Clemson guys, those are grown men. Even the freshmen come in there as grown men. So with that, yeah, Lashley was handicapped. I don't think he did very much to kind of break out of it and try to find any new wrinkles. But again, it's like a chicken and the egg thing. I don't think anyone had a good day out there on the offensive side.
And I want to talk about this because this is going to lead us to our next subject. But we got to realize that Rhett Lashley, the tempo style of offense is go, go, go. That's how he built his offense. That's what we want. That's what gives us our wild card. Well, you know what stops tempo? It's penalties. So when you're getting ready to go back to the line and the referee says, wait, we got a penalty. And then not only does the penalty stop the tempo, it's moving you back 5 yards. I mean, I was just very disappointed in our offensive line. Not only did they get bullied, but the false starts. There's a lot of things that I can look at this game and just say Clemson was better. But the things that disappoint me was things like how many penalties we had, which was in the double digits, which at one point we had more penalty yards than we had offensive yards.
Yeah, it's one of those like X's and O's versus the Jimmys and Joes kind of a deal. And the offensive line, like when you think about like what a great team looks like, you have a guy like Jared Williams who could be one of those key points, but he's probably not the best guy on a really high-end offensive line. He's probably the third or fourth best guy on a really high-end offensive line. And, for us, he's probably generally our best guy. And, he had false starts. Campbell had holding calls. And the interior was largely a disaster. And they had false, it was just, again, shooting themselves in the foot. And I think on the defensive side, it's a big part of that was shooting themselves in the foot when they had opportunities, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But you can't make mistakes like that against Clemson. You can't push yourself back, especially when you're struggling to even hold on to the ball on offense for more than like a minute for a drive. So definitely not an optimistic look.
Looks bad. It looks bad offensively. 4th and 1, running with Rooster. Thoughts on that?
Bad. Didn't make any sense. Like you know that the way they play on the inside, how your offensive line on the interior had looked. Ja'Kai Clark just got beat so badly on that play.
Oh my God.
So badly.
Oh my God.
It was painful. It was painful to watch. It was the kind of thing that like you watch it, you see it happen, and you're like he had never at any point in that play did he have a chance to make it. Just by he put himself out of position and then physically just got knocked aside like it was nothing. And that's where their strength had been all game. I didn't get why you try to even do that. And yeah, I know Clemson can run side to side with anybody, but at least try to get yourself an angle where King can make a play, or just like throw a slant, like try to get it to Jordan, do a little pop pass, something. But running on the interior was the entire game a failure. So I don't
With
get going for that.
Knighton.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, and I'm not just saying this because of the result of the play. I would rather run a dive play with Robert Burns than Jalen Knighton. To me, that's not his strong suit.
Right. And, Cam has one of those, like, he should be tackled, but he somehow finds a way to get 5 yards. Like, he has a couple of those runs every single game. Knighton is still kind of learning how to be a college-level back, and his body type isn't really made to break a tackle of a Clemson defensive tackle. So, yeah, that didn't make any sense.
Can we talk about the disappearance acts of Brevin Jordan and Will Mallory? Was it their fault? Was it Lashley's fault? I mean, we always talk about how good these tight ends are, but in the big games, they're never used to our advantage.
It happens a lot. It happens in games where we're winning. It happens in games when things are going well for the offense. So I don't think it's a them thing. I think it's just a schematic thing where they're not put in a lot of position. Like, I mean, the one target I can remember for Mallory was the one on the side where it was intercepted, where it was like, why are you putting him out there to run that route? And if he's going to run that route, like, why are you throwing it? why are you trying to throw it like a flat angle to get it, like, for him catch and run? Like, put that up in the air. Let him go try to make a jump, like a jump and catch on a sideline, or let him stop and let the more athletic corner go by. So, like, that tells me that it really wasn't a Mallory route. They just put him out there and they figured, let's just try to use the size out there. It was probably a Wiggins route that they just said, all right, Mallory, you're going to run this route for us right now. So I don't think Lashley has yet figured out a way to make it a specific part of the game plan to get both of them involved. I think he knows how to get Jordan involved a little bit, but Mallory, I think, is just, he doesn't know exactly how to use him inside the offense yet, which, it's great that we have these two, future NFL tight ends, but at the end of the day, it's not going to matter. And, it's funny thinking back, because when we had Herndon and Njoku, I felt like there was a lot of times where we were able to use both of them and really feature them in their own specific skill sets. And that was with a far less overall talented offense and coordinators, who I'm sure everyone would agree that Lashley's better than. So that's really makes it frustrating.
All right. Moving over to the defense. Hey, I got some good stuff to talk about defensively. Bubba Bolden. Let's talk about Bubba Bolden, man. Can I get 22 Bubba Boldens?
Oh, it would be nice. It would be nice, man. You get 11 Bubbas on a defense, you could win a national championship. Just like by attitude alone. Like, he could have been on any one of those teams, and like you might say, well, is he as good as a player? No, but he's the kind of guy that he could have been on the roster and no one would have batted an eye at it. He would have played special teams. He would have blocked kicks for you. He would have been out there, as a second safety, as your best safety, playing nickel back. He would have done anything for you. Not enough guys on the team will have that attitude, have that mentality, and it shows up so consistently.
Facts. And I think, like you said, not only does he have the attitude, he backs it up. Bloody nose and all, diving, blocking field goals, 2 block field goals, hitting all over the field. Does he make mistakes? Yes. I seen him miss a couple tackles. But when he misses those tackles, I feel like he gave everything he could to try to make the tackle. So shout out to Bubba Bolden. Amari Carter. To me, it's inexcusable what he did.
Yeah.
To me,
agreed.
soon as Trevor Lawrence slid, Amari Carter knows he's in because Gervin Hall is not in because of a targeting call. Amari Carter knows these ACC officials are looking at him for targeting. And third, Amari Carter knows you can't touch the golden boy.
Yep. And that it happened to Keontae later too. Like that was just a pure like golden boy. You hit the guy, you hit the golden goose a little bit too late kind of a penalty. But with Carter, it's like it's frustrating because he's a senior, but it happens so often. And like it was a bad play by him. Like I saw some people saying, it wasn't that late. He just started to go down. Amari was starting to go after him, but no, you saw what was happening in front of you. He had an opportunity to pull up and not deliver the hit the way he delivered it. Like there was absolutely an opportunity for him to pull back on it, but the joke is that he gets called for all these targeting penalties, but you only get called for targeting penalties all the time if you're putting yourself in a position to target people and to not realize that there's certain things you can do now and certain things you can't do now. If it was 2002, he can throw his body at anybody and do whatever he wanted, but it's not anymore. It's 2020. You can't play safety like that. And if he is going to play safety like that, he's got to make a lot more plays to justify him being on the field as much as he's on the field. He's got to do things on the back end that help us win games. Because right now, from our safeties, we have Bolden helping us win, and we don't have anything else in terms of positivity. And we can't keep going like that, because if that's the way we're going to get from our safeties, then we need to have the young guys getting more experience and have them running next to Bolden for as much time as he's going to be here, because I doubt it's going to be next year.
Smith, I didn't think that was a targeting. And even if it was, I could take that. You're blitzing. To me, it looked like you tried to put your shoulder into him. Amari, I just feel like he's so smart. He's so experienced. In the situation, we can't afford to lose you. So that's why I'm so terrible on him. Once again, I'm going to talk about a change that I think should be made. And you let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong on this one. I think Zach McCloud needs to go out.
God.
And I bring in Sam Brooks at the linebacker position.
100%. 1,000%. Whatever you give me a number, I'll put a percentage on it. And as long as it's above 100, I will agree with you. McCloud is what's become like a tradition now at Miami, where when your linebackers get to be upperclassmen, they've lost a step somehow, even though they're only 22, 23. They've lost a step. They're too big. They've become oversized, and at that point they can't run with guys. And so you could say that, McCloud had that one really nice play on the little flare pass to Etienne, that's one. That's one. But you could find probably a dozen plays where he put himself, and Jennings is probably in the same boat, plays where they put themselves out of position because they're not, they made a mistake on a read, and then they're not athletic enough to make up for it. I'm okay with guys, trying to make a big play and then, getting to a spot, and then it just maybe was the incorrect read or whatever it is. But a guy like Brooks, if he makes a mistake, he could still run the play down on the backside and get involved in the play. Nesta does it all the time. Phillips does it all the time. A guy like Brooks could do that. He can use his speed, because eventually that's going to be some tackles for loss. That's going to be an interception. The play Brooks made in the middle of the field where he got a hand on the ball, that was after he ran a red run, came up, dropped back, got his hand on the ball. There was no chance on any planet with any type of gravity that McCloud was going to be able to make that play. That's the kind of stuff you need a speedier linebacker in there for. And we ran McCloud and Jennings out there together way too often against a team that has the sort of sideline to sideline speed that Clemson does. We rent with it, and I know we don't do sub packages on defense. I understand that this is our sub packages are basically the use of the striker, and we just make that into a pseudo sub package. I get that, but if you're going to do that, you can't have 53 and 44 on the field at the same time. It's just, you're too slow to beat Clemson. You're too slow to stop them from driving down the field and getting one of those 3rd and 11s that they got 4 or 5 times in this game on us.
Hold up. If you're not signed up with the Patreon squad, aka the Kane Gang, then what are you doing? Get signed up right now. Link in the description and in the pinned comments. And for less than a cup of coffee, you can get the extra content, the exclusive content, the ad-free content, the early access content, the film breakdowns that I can't put on YouTube because YouTube will strike your boy down. Hey, we turning up on the Patreon squad, the Kane Gang. Get over there right now. Link in the description. And if you're already a member of the Kane Gang, I appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of this content. I'm moving my hands, a lot of hand movement. All right, the one reason that I love doing this instant reaction and that I wanted to do this with the co-host is because I want to be educated. Because everything I say is not right. So I want to talk it out with somebody. So I want you to kind of explain this. I mean, because I can't explain it. I watched Sam Brooks lay the wood on a guy, knock him out. Then the next play, I watch a misdirection play where Sam Brooks reads his key, reacts, knows it's not going there, then almost gets the interception, but at least gets the knockdown. And the next drive, not only is he not in the game, they have a true freshman in Corey Flagg out there. Can you explain that to me? Because I'm when I see that happen, I'm confused, and I instantly think about, one, did I miss something? As I'm watching the game, did I miss something? And two, how does Sam Brooks feel making two back-to-back big plays, and then they take him out?
Well, I think a lot of it is like when we watch the games and like we've seen all these games and and we're picking up on the consistencies of the games that we're watching. And like for both of us, and we've talked about the linebacker position, and it's not like they lost, now they're ragging on all these guys. Like we've had the same exact conversation about the linebackers after every single game so far. And after every single game, it's like you're leaning a lot on 53 and 44. I think the first week 44, Jennings had a good game, but you're leaning a lot on those guys, and like you need to get Brooks in there more. You need to try Huff out. You need to get the kids in. We've said it after every single game, right? So we're seeing the same thing game to game that the rest of the fans are seeing. Now the coaches are seeing what happens in game to game, but they're also seeing in the course of the week of practice. So they're basing their adjustments on game and practice, which makes sense because you want to reward guys for practicing really well and all that. But at the end of the day, like when you're out there on the field playing those 60 minutes against an opponent with a different color jersey on, if one guy is flashing and making all these plays, and then you consistently like say, okay, there's your two, get him out because we got to go back to the rotation, then you're going to hurt his confidence, like you said. You're going to put him in a position where he doesn't know exactly where he stands on the team when a freshman is getting snaps over him, a freshman who, it's not like this freshman came in as super, super highly touted. So he's going to be wondering why I'm losing snaps to a freshman when, I'm supposed to be here and being one of the guys. It's frustrating for all of us. And I'm sure they have a justification based upon practice and, Flagg really stepped up in this situation, and we thought he's better in this spot and all that. But at the end of the day, I would have Brooks out there playing just about every snap I could, because I don't think you have a guy that's better than him for what we need right now. I think we need to obviously get more talented linebackers in, and I think after a game like this, Terrence Lewis becomes a lot bigger of an option for us, like as a recruiting standpoint. But like I would have Brooks out there every time, every second he's ready to go. Like physically, he'd be on the field, because I can't lose that speed on the field, and because how it's damaged us so far this season.
You know what? I just thought about something, because honestly, to me, I think I would go with Brooks. Like you said, he's young. He's going to make mistakes, but a lot of the mistakes he can make up for. If McLeod makes a mistake, he's done for, like we've seen tonight, and then like we've seen in these past two games, and we've discussed. But think about this, though, and think about this from Manny's point of view. You've been with McLeod since day one. McLeod decided to redshirt and come back. It's going to be tough to bench him.
Yeah, it is. And
I'm not saying that's the reason, but I'm saying there is a little bit of human nature in all these decision moves.
Well, look at last year. I mean, our whole defense rotated constantly throughout the course of the year, but 53 and 55 never came off the field. Or Pinckney and Shaq, 55, 56 never came off the field. They were on the field almost every single snap of the season last year. And we had young guys that could have gotten some snaps in. It could have worked out. Even McLeod could have been like a real legitimate third linebacker at last year for us, which probably would have been helpful, but they never came off the field. And a lot of the reason for that is Manny probably not wanting to, take these guys out who've been to war for him for so long. So, but it did eventually hurt us because having them, in more of a rotation probably would have pushed younger guys to be a little bit more ready. This year probably would have worked out better. And I think you're seeing some of the same stuff this year because 53 and 44 are on the field a lot. And I feel like we even saw more of Steed and Brooks and even Huff earlier in the season than we have been seeing them. So I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of like a loyalty thing. Like they were loyal to me, I'd be loyal to them. But when you're trying to win football games against elite teams, you can't just say loyalty is going to win this one because it's just not.
So looking at our defense, I would say, and again, let me know if I'm wrong. I thought our cornerbacks played well. I thought they went toe to toe with the Clemson receivers. The Clemson receivers, they did make some catches, but every catch was contested. Every catch I felt like, they're fighting for. So I thought our corners played well. Balaam, when he was out there, he was, you can't even really blame the kid. I mean, he's a freshman. We knew he wasn't ready. And when he got out there, obviously we saw he wasn't ready. And we already spoke on Bubba Bolden. And I thought Gilbert Firestone played well. What'd you think about how our corners and our striker played?
Oh, Firestone was great. He's had a couple games in a row this year where he's played really well. And from the striker, I think when Romeo Finley was playing it really well, he just created a couple negative plays in the flat that, if he didn't make the play, it would have probably gone for a big gainer. And that's what Firestone's starting to do now too. He's starting to make some of those really big plays out on the edges where, he's knowing he's the last line of defense out there, he makes the play. I think Firestone's been great and Smith's been great too in his time. There's even moments where I say to myself, wouldn't we be so much faster and more athletic if we went with a Firestone, Brooks, Smith trio on that second level just to see what it does for us, because our defensive line is pretty good when it comes to stopping the run, or at least containing the run. So if you had those guys out there and you just kind of use your defensive line more to kind of, hold up holes and force, and then let those guys run alleys and make tackles, that may not be a bad option until we get linebackers who are a little bit more athletic. So I thought they were great. And on the cornerback spot, Ivy made some good plays out there. He was competing. He was physical. Blades got beat on that one play to Ladson. But they were hand fighting all the way down the field, and Ladson got one quick little push at the last second and made a play. But even after he made the catch, Blades still did exactly what he was coached up to do, and he went for the hands and almost knocked it away there. Missed it by maybe 6 or so inches. So the corners are doing what they're supposed to do, and I know everybody likes to bash Rumph because he can't recruit, he can't do this, can't do that. The corners have played well, and even Couch out there. Couch has made a lot of progress from where I saw early in the season. He's more physical, he's aggressive, he's trying to make plays. So that's a really good sign too, where the guy that you don't necessarily think is going to be a key contributor necessarily is doing that. If I were to look at a coach and say this is a coach that should go, I think Rumph should be knocked down a peg off of the top of that list. Patke first. Then if you talk about Patke first, then you're allowed to talk about Rumph. But unless you're talking Patke first, I don't want to hear any talk to the general public about Rumph, because his corners are out there playing and competing against a team with some really good receivers.
Defensive line, what'd you think?
Their offense was made in this game to limit the effectiveness of the defensive line, in my mind.
Let's talk about this. I think if we have Gregory Rousseau tonight, I think he makes a difference tonight. I don't know if we win a game, but I think with Gregory Rousseau out there, he makes a difference. I mean, we got guys being offsides, guys, hitting after the whistle. What would you say to that? Because you said, hey, we got J.J. Phillips. You don't think we miss Greg too much. I say we have Greg tonight. Things are a little bit different.
Yeah, And you're right. And it's, when we talked about that too, was it 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, like, you're exactly right that this is the game where you see why a Rousseau really matters. Because in this game, I would trade a Phillips on the edge for a Rousseau playing inside, like he did against Florida State last year. This is the kind of game where if you put Rousseau in the middle, where you make Trevor Lawrence's life a little bit tougher, because Jafari Harvey was actually really pretty solid out there, and
he flashed a lot.
Yeah, so like you get him on the edge opposite Roche, who had a couple of nice plays, but you've obviously made a couple of mistakes. But you put Rousseau in the middle of the field where his length can cause so many problems, and you get hands in Lawrence's face consistently and not let him be so comfortable. Because as good as our defensive tackles have been at times this season, there's a lot of slow push the pocket, not quite as explosive as they need to be. I think a Rousseau on the interior would have changed a lot about what Clemson would be able to do with ease, like they were. Because a lot of what they did was, quick little passes or like on screen plays where Lawrence just was smart enough and calm enough to get the ball out of there pretty coolly. I think if you put Rousseau on the interior, I think he gets his hand in Lawrence's face, gets a couple sacks, because I don't think their offensive line was great. It's just that their scheme was to get the ball out pretty quickly, and our guys weren't fast enough to get to him.
I say overall, I thought the defense played well. Now they ended up putting up 49 points on our head. Things look bad. I see people saying stuff about Coach Baker, but I'll say this: I thought overall our defense kept us in the game. When you really look at what this defense was against, first of all, I'm not blaming the refs. We lost the game. But every time we did something good, the refs came or we made the penalty. Maybe it's us. So first of all, I think that made the defense worse than it was. Obviously, no Gervin Hall. Soon as Amari Carter gets out, you have to put in a true freshman. That hurts us. McLeod gets hurt, and then they put in Corey Flagg. I wish they would have just put in Sam Brooks and kept Sam Brooks. I think looking at having to stop Travis Etienne, Galloway, the tight end, and Trevor Lawrence, and basically they're saying you can't even touch Trevor Lawrence. I thought Coach Baker and the defense did good. My only thing with Coach Baker is I think sometimes, and he made the adjustment in the second half. But I think coming into the game, you've got to know on third down, they are very happy with dumping the ball off to Travis Etienne. That's the one thing that he should have taken away. But overall, what did you think about the defense? And I say, hey, cut Coach Baker some slack because he was up against a lot tonight. You agree or disagree?
Well, after the first half, and I don't know what the final numbers ended up being, but the first half, I said, it felt ugly, and the score wasn't that bad because of the return on the field goal block and everything, but that felt ugly, and it felt like we were constantly on defense. And I said, what the time possession is probably crazy, and I looked it up, and it was 22 minutes for Clemson, 8 minutes for Miami. Like, I don't know what you expect a defense to do when they're on the field for 22 minutes of a half. I mean, and that probably equates to about an hour of a rough hour and a half of football. Like, that's a lot of time to be on the defensive side against an offense that, you always have to worry about every level of the running back being like this world beater and the quarterback being able to put it up anywhere over the field and the receivers that are so good and an offensive line of guys that are going to play in the league and all. So that's a lot to put on a defense, and to only give up 21 points and to stop them a couple times on pretty key situations, and they should have stopped them on another key situation on fourth down on the first drive. So like they did play better than I think the numbers and people might suggest from when you look at it and say, oh, Clemson scored this and Clemson did that. So they definitely played better than I think people are going to be giving them credit for. And because I already know how it's going to go. People are going to bash Coach Baker, like you were saying. They're going to bash him. They're going to say this and say that. I would say I would put more blame on Lashley than Baker. I think some of the guys on the defense, if I was going to criticize Baker, it would be for certain guys being in certain positions to cover certain players. Like anytime you have McLeod lined up on ATN, like it's probably going to that automatically favors Clemson. And Trevor Lawrence is good enough to find that a lot, which is where a lot of those third and long screen plays came in. Because you know that Lawrence has that ability to just say like, oh, I see it. I know exactly where it's going to go and check it to that and make a big play. So if they had different guys out there, like I saw James Williams tweeted, what he would give to be out there on the field. A James Williams on the field with his potential can keep that from happening over and over again. That's the kind of guy that can keep that from happening with his length and his athleticism. That's the kind of player we need out there. And until we get more of those players, those elite caliber of players, we're going to keep having these conversations after these games, because it's just rolling out there and trying really hard and believing in themselves isn't good enough to beat Clemson. It's not now, and it's not going to be in a couple years.
Sometimes when you say things, things click in my head, but you talked about James Williams. You know what guy who we will be missing, Bubba Bolden, but you know who I think could come in and I'm not saying he's going to be Bubba Bolden or anything like that, but I think he matches up with the athletic ability and with how Bubba Bolden plays is Avonte Williams. I would have loved to have him out there tonight. So maybe Avonte comes in instead of a Brian Balaam.
Yeah, for sure. And like Avonte is that guy that could play. He could play either. So that play where Ivy, on the long touchdown run where Ivy gave up, where he for some reason decided not to go and like keep his legs moving and drive through the tackle on the sideline, or even just push him out of bounds. Like that happens because you have your corner dropping back and your safety on the other side moving up. But if you have two safeties that can kind of like play on either side, we don't have to worry about Balaam playing the deep single. Then you probably have Avonte playing that spot, and Ivy crosses over the defense. And I don't think Avonte gives up the play like Ivy would have. So there's a lot of little things in there that you say, well, if it were a little bit different, probably would have made a play. So that is definitely one of those spots. I can't wait to see him on the field for Miami.
Definitely. And I will say that DJ, you gotta push him out of bounds on that. I forgot about that. You gotta push him out of bounds. I don't know if he thought he was going to cut back in or what. I mean, it's easy for me to say I'm behind a microphone, but you push the man out of bounds.
Yeah, and it's going to rainstorm. And I said to Bill, the guy that runs the account with me, I said, what did you expect him to do in a rainstorm? Like, what was that ETN going to do on the side? Like, hit the spin move like it's a video game, like the conditions don't matter. Like, there was very little opportunity he had to do besides just like run forward. So, but that was bad. And then also before, like that gave up a touchdown, and Jennings gave up a touchdown early in the game because he started to stutter step when ETN gave him like just the slightest little hesitation move. So he's slowed down, and Jennings, when he slows down, it almost comes to a stop. ETN doesn't. So he gave him a little bit of a stutter step, and then ETN got to the corner, and he blew by the corner who was getting blocked by the receiver and had a big gainer for a touchdown there too. So it's like little things with these guys. Like you can't make a mistake like that because these Clemson's just too good. They will automatically put that in the end zone when you make a play like that, or you don't make a play, I should say.
Facts. ETN, he definitely showed why he's one of the best. I mean, a lot of people were in my comments saying, "Oh my goodness, you sound like a Clemson fan talking about how good he is." Well, you saw how good he was. Chris, they say the grass isn't always greener on the other side, And we made a change. We're talking about making all these changes. And the thing about it is you never know how it's going to go. One change that was made was Mark Pope out, Xavier Restrepo in. And I would say it was a complete failure. What do you think, punt return wise?
Yeah, we posted in our mailbag article on Canes Insight this week, and they said, who do you want to see as their punt returner? And I said, well, I want Restrepo out there because he seems like a confident kid. You need somebody with some confidence who isn't afraid to make a play. He's not afraid to catch the ball, because it seemed like times that Mark Pope was afraid to catch the ball because he didn't know what he would do with it. Like almost like in basketball. Like when I was a little kid, I was always terrible at basketball because I would never like have a plan for the ball once I got it. I would catch it and I would stop and I would think like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I would end up just chucking up a terrible shot. Like the best guys always had a plan for what to do. like kind of innately in their mind, like this is exactly what I'm going to do when I get this ball in my hands, which is why they're never nervous, because they already know what they're going to do, like what's about to happen, right? So I feel like Pope never really knew what he was to do with the ball, so he got nervous, and then when he caught it, he was so desperate to like, okay, now what? But he's tackled or he fumbled it or whatever. I'm like, Restrepo has that confidence. He's going to see the field because he even played some running back, and he's like a slot guy, so he's more in tune with making plays in space. And then I saw that ball bouncing towards him, and I was like, this kid's going to try to grab that ball, isn't he? Tried to grab it, bounced off his hands, bounced back towards the end zone. Like that was bad. That was real bad. But the play he made before that, when the Clemson player had batted it or kicked it or whatever, and he went to go pick it up, and like that, I was like, that's a smart play. That's a kid who knows the rules, and he knows that worst case scenario, if he muffs it, it's still Miami ball, and if he gets tackled 10 yards back, it doesn't matter because it can go back up to the spot. So I was all ready to be like, yep, I was right. I'm so smart. And then the other play happened, and I felt like there was no need to brag about how smart I was. But like potential, obviously that was a really terrible mistake, especially in a rainstorm. But I think he could still be the guy. I think it's just a matter of him getting over, knowing when sometimes you got to let that play die, because there was really no hope for that one at all.
Yeah, I'm at the point now where, and I said this in my video, I said I'm at a double edge. I don't know which way to go because I feel nervous when Pope is there. And I said, if you put Xavier Restrepo in this game, then you're putting him in against Clemson, prime time. I feel like, that's a lot of nerves right there. And what happened tonight happened tonight. At this point, I just want somebody who's going to go back there and either catch the ball or run away from it. Catch the ball or run away from it. I've never seen in 4 games so many different things happen on a punt return. I mean, a guy can run up to it while 8 people around him and try to catch it. A guy could muff it. A guy could try to say, well, it hit the Clemson player, so if I pick it up, there's nothing that can happen to me. A guy could try to pick it up in a rainstorm. I'm like, catch the ball or run away. Catch the ball or run away.
I never thought I'd miss KJ as much as I do, but like after a couple weeks of last season, you realize what like a talented and professional wide receiver he was, but also like how consistent he was in the return game, even though he wasn't like huge game breaker, traditional punt returner, but just having a guy you could trust, like you realize how much you miss that when he's gone.
That's facts. Let me ask you something. I was just thinking about this. Do you think, the guys that left early, Jeff Thomas, Trajan Bandy, we have those guys tonight. Do they help us out a lot?
I don't think we win. I don't see Jeff really having enough of an opportunity to make a big play. I don't think King would have gotten the ball quite as Jeff would need to win the game for us. I think Bandy would help just by, they would probably be a lot more likely to use a third corner because they could trust Bandy more, like with physicality at the nickelback spot. But I don't think we win. I don't think
DJ Dallas would be one of those guys.
I don't think DJ would have had any space. I think it just the offensive line wouldn't be able to give him any space. Like, I would love to have had him back just to see what we could have done. Maybe we could have made it more respectable. Maybe when we could have gotten it to within 4 at that spot, when we had a chance to do so. But the offense was such a disaster overall that, unless you're letting me go all the way back to like the early 2000s and pull some of those guys, I don't think it would have done much.
All right. Yeah, I always just wonder that because, you look at a guy like, I'm seeing ETN run down the sideline. I'm like, damn, bro, could you not just have went to the NFL? Like, why'd you have to come back? Trevor Lawrence, could your ass have not opted out? I just look at, they were talking about one of the linebackers, and they were like, oh, he decided to wait his turn. And I'm like, man, I just find myself wondering, what if the player stayed one more year? Would that make a difference in these big time games where We got a safety gone, and then we get another safety that get kicks out. It's crazy, but
Yeah, we'll see next year because, I mean, we got to keep, we lost this game, but we got Bama week 1 next year. So,
man.
If Blades goes and Ivy goes and Hall goes and King goes and Cam goes and all these guys go, then we're going to be in a worse position next year against Bama, who is going to have, they're going to be stacked with people. I don't care who stays, who goes, they're going to be stacked, right? But if you get King to stay another season and you get the 2 corners back, and then you're talking about having, and I know Bolden's gone, you can write him off, but talking about having guys who could play, who have played for a long time, that's a whole different conversation. Just to be more ready physically, because you have an offensive line with guys that could stay. So if all these guys go pro just because they can, without there really being a good path for them and have NFL success, then we're always gonna be chasing and hoping and saying maybe. But if we get some of these guys to stay, then we actually have some experience there. Then we could say there's a real reason why we should be strong at corner. There's a real reason why you should be strong at receiver, at quarterback, or whatever position it might be. So hopefully we can get these guys to stay, because that's going to be the most important recruiting thing that they do at this point with all these young kids locked up.
I agree. So tonight, overall, man, I think the one lesson that I learned tonight is that we have a good team, guys. I want everybody to know we have a good team, but we got a lot to work on. And I think right now, after 4 games of the Miami Hurricanes, of seeing this Miami Hurricane teams, I just think we're good, but we're not at the level of a Clemson. We're not at those levels. And if a coach out-coaches us, because we have the talent, but if a coach out-coaches us, we can be beat by some of these ACC teams. Now, I still think we're better than some of these other teams, but we got a lot to work on. And I think the more film that gets out on us, the more if the coaching staff, if they don't make adjustments, that's when we can see problems. So I saw you tweet out the good, bad, and the ugly. So I just kind of wanted to end on that note, after everything we've said, just kind of leave us with, what was good tonight, what was bad, and what was ugly tonight.
Offense, ugly, from a lot of different facets. Good, King, he wasn't good with the deep ball, and he had some inaccuracies, but, the kid was competing constantly. That's the exact kind of attitude. They went over and over talking about how Lawrence was out there competing, and he was taking hits, not afraid to come back out, even though it was in the 4th quarter and all that. But they also, they praised King the same way, and they weren't just doing that because they felt like they wanted to be even. They saw what we saw. They saw De'Ara King as a legitimate leader of a football team, and he can be the guy to help us win games. So that's important, even if he isn't the most accurate quarterback at times. He's a gamer, and we need that. We've needed that for a while. And Bubba Bolden, he's the kind of kid that if you had, like we said, if you had 11 of him, you win championships. And if he could just infect some of the other guys in that defense with that attitude that he has, where it's not okay to just give this play up, it's not okay to give up a touchdown or whatever. If we could just get that mentality in more guys, I think we'll do really well. Bad, I think the linebacker play, we have to get better on the second level of the defense. I don't know what way to do that, but we can't go up against some of these other ACC teams and expect our linebackers to be slow and late get into the hole and to win games, because we'll just get eaten up the same way. Or even worse, we'll give up big plays when we shouldn't on 3rd downs, and then long touchdown runs where we're actually playing well on offense and we still screw things up. So, and ugly, pretty much the offensive side of the ball outside of De'Ara, the receiver play, got to get better.
All right, man. Well, Chris, it was a tough one tonight, man, but I appreciate you coming on as always, man. Go ahead and let the people know we got Pittsburgh up next. I enjoyed the countdown, the Canes Legacy guys. Make sure you check them out on Twitter this week. They showed all the times that we upset number 1. It got me hyped up. It gave me false hope. Thanks a lot, Chris. I'm blaming you. What do y'all got going on with Pittsburgh week.
Well, I hyped myself up too by towards the end there. So like that's why I said I'm gonna do 4 of them that last day, because I'm gonna make sure like I'm over the top excited for this game, because if we win, then we'll flood the timeline. But so yeah, I hurt myself on that one too. We'll do our normal articles for Canes Insight. We'll look at tomorrow or into Monday. A big game from this week in history for Miami, and then do our mailbag, which we appreciate everyone who's ever, commented and throw a question out there on the mailbag and all that. And then, we'll probably look at some of the big games against Pittsburgh, because this is a really, really big game. And I don't think, when you look at the schedule and you say to yourself, like, which games really matter a lot, like Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, UNC, these are huge games for us, just to make sure that we don't want to be one of the teams in the ACC. It's like was in college basketball, when like you're in a really good conference where the 2-3 teams at the top, then you have all these other teams that they'll make the tournament, but they're pretty much all just kind of a collection of random teams, and they're not really that good. They're clearly a step below. I don't want to be in the also making the tournament bracket. I don't want to be one of those other random ACC teams that goes to the whatever whocares.com bowl. We got to beat Pittsburgh. We got to beat North Carolina. We got to beat Virginia Tech. And like Manny needs to make sure he gets into his guys' heads that, you lost to Clemson, but if you want to be looked at as a team that can at some point beat them, you cannot lose this game. So that's the number one thing. So we're going to do our best to kind of highlight some other games like in this situation, maybe games like how we've played after big losses and what we can do from there. So it might be something worthwhile looking at this week.
All right, guys, y'all make sure y'all check out my boy Chris. Check out his content. And Chris, as always, man, I appreciate you doing this with me, brother.
All right, Grant, no problem. Hopefully a better result next week.
All right, brother. Thank you.